We can't really catch a break in the news cycle. It seems like every single day we're being topped with more and more craziness happening around the world. In Canada, things are becoming a bit of a melting pot. Around the world, in Venezuela, there's some election interference and election fraud that's happening. The Olympics, the backlash, it's getting even worse, and things are just ramping up. And then on my extra channel, I did announce that due to the Olympic Games opening ceremony, it really opened my eyes, this attack on Christianity, that I think I'm going to start going back to church, and I'm going to take my family with me. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And before we get into it, I want to give a massive shout out to a company called Dreamforge 3D. So when my dog died, my husky died several months back, I had made an announcement seeing if anyone is capable of making a custom urn. And I've been pretty transparent about this in the past. I used to live in a van. Well, I used to live in this van right here, and Dreamforge 3D actually custom designed this using 3D printing, and my dog's ashes are in here. This is an urn. This is an exact replica down to all of the all of the rust patches on my van, and this has just been so emotionally incredible. Like, this is like the closure that I needed. And so I'm going to link it down below in the description and the pinned comment below. Dreamforge 3D, they also went out of their way and he made these little keychains right here based off of my stickers. So if you're looking for some 3D printing, if you're a business, if you're an individual person and you'd be interested, I highly recommend you guys go click on that link. Without further ado, let's get into this video here. So the polls are updated. They have updated, and it's still exactly kind of where it was before. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party are sitting at 212 seats projected. They have not moved, or else you would see an arrow up or down. You can see Justin Trudeau has gone down 1 point, 1 seat. He was at 74. Now he's down to 73. I wonder if that has anything to do with him, you know, partying and vacationing on Tofino while the big part of the country was burning down to the ground. Kind of bizarre, but nonetheless, he got caught pretty much with his pants down. Next up, we have from Europe Invasion on X. Breaking: United States, France, Saudi Arabia, Norway, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden calling their citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. Not Canada, apparently, and I'm sure it's nothing. I'm sure it's absolutely nothing. Next up, we have 72% of Canadians consider the amount they pay in income tax to be too high, according to a new Ipsos poll. The remaining are NDP and Liberal voters, would probably be my understanding. And CTV is putting out feelers. If you think Canada has changed, we want to hear from you, says CTV. So if you want to let them know how Canada has changed from your point of view, from your perspective, you can find this article and you can click on it and send them emails, apparently, which I'm sure everything will be fine. That's a very weird thing to do and call to action, CTV. From Table Salt on X, rental option number 3 in Canada, prostitution. Welcome to 2024. Now, this is something that I've seen quite a bit here with ads that get put out for rentals. Only for girls, private or shared accommodation in a much affordable rent of just $300. And I've seen other ones where it's usually like only Indian people. Like it's always niche. I've never ever seen an only white people or only straight white male ad. It's always only for girls or only for Indians. Let me know if you guys have seen these types of articles, whether they're on Facebook Marketplace or however else people find rent posted. It's always very, very bizarre to me. Now we have a bit of a reality check here for the state of Canada, because car theft is at an all-time high. I think Canada leads. We hold the record for the worst car theft in the entire world right now, which is crazy. This is how some people are preparing for car theft. They are literally locking their wheels so that thieves can't come and get their vehicle.
Yo, this is the new security in our Brampton. And look, tire lock, or wheel lock, but not even tire lock. Look there. Buckley. No, sir. And then that's what I go down in the ground. That man and now lose that carrier. Look there. This.
I've never seen this. I feel like all of Canada is in a heightened state of awareness, or at least most people are, because what's happening right now is there's so much crime. There's so much homelessness. There's so many drug addicts. It just doesn't feel safe. And that's not to promote the idea of being in a constant state of paranoia of, oh my God, who's over there? Who's over there? Right? That's not really it, but also it kind of is when you live in a major city, or whether you're visiting a major city like Vancouver, for example. Vancouver, people have been stabbed outside of a Starbucks in front of their kid and died just for asking somebody to not smoke near them, right? Like, things are insane. Now, these don't happen all of the time, of course, but it happens at a much higher rate than it ever has, and it is very alarming. A lot of people other than myself are realizing this. And just, I want to ask you guys, how do you feel about this? If you live in a major city, or if you've recently been to a major city or a populated area in Canada, do you feel kind of on edge? Are you kind of looking everywhere going, okay, what's the next thing? What's going to happen? Where are the Palestinian protesters? Who's going to come out with a weapon? Because that just seems to be the ongoing narrative here. And that's not a fun way to live. That's not a safe way to live. That's not the Canada that we once knew. And speaking of Canada we once knew, our trades are changing. Now, spot the anomaly. Spot the thing that seems different. Here we go.
Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking that guy is stretching. Nah. See, that guy is part of the scaffold. That guy is actually standing there, hanging on to the scaffold while the guy works patiently, sitting down, trusting that guy with everything he's got, that he's going to stay there, hanging on to that till he's done. I'm not going to have this video going for that long, unfortunately. After I stopped recording, the guy did this huge sign of relief. But this is fucked up. I take it that the laborer here is making more than the actual guy doing the finishing on the house.
All right, so you can see one ladder is going from the ground up to the first level of the house, and then this guy is holding an additional ladder through the first ladder onto a ledge, and he's sitting on it painting. Now, that is not something you see every day in Canada, but it is something that you're starting to see more of, if you catch my drift. Next up, we have Justin Trudeau, who says Canadians can save even more and help fight climate change if they start walking to work. What? That's right. In the cold ass country of Canada, where we get minus 30 snow for 8 months out of the year, you can help fight climate change if you just suck it up and walk to work.
We have to fight climate change. We know Canadians want us to fight climate change. We only have to look at the wildfires that hit last summer in Alberta. We only need to look at the droughts, the floods, the impact of a changing climate on all of us to know we need to do our part. So we put a price on pollution everywhere across the country that is designed to put more money back in the pockets of hardworking Canadians. 8 out of 10 families across the country in jurisdictions where the federal carbon tax applies do better off. That's not just me who says it, it's the parliamentary budget officer has done the math on that as well. Here in Alberta, that's $1,800 for a family of 4 next year, or this year. And why do people like Danielle Smith and her husband do better because of it? Well, she said, because it puts more money in their pocket and they're able to reduce their emissions, or they're able to walk to work, or whatever it was that you can do that reduces your emissions, actually allows you to keep even more of that rebate that you're not spending on the price on pollution.
That's just so bizarre that they think that that's sustainable for everybody. I mean, everyone should, first of all, in Canada, have the right to choose the best method to travel that works for themselves. Having the government tell you that you should be taking public transport if you live in a small ass city that doesn't really have good public transport, or even if you live in a major city, that's not their job to do that. And trying to convince people to work or cycle to work, again, and by gaslighting people, nonetheless, is just not really a productive way of a government governing its citizens. It's very hypocritical. I mean, Justin Trudeau gets in a jet and with not a lot of people, right? He doesn't fill his Boeing planes with hundreds of people, and he flies around the world or even around Canada, emitting a lot of carbon. But yeah, you should walk to work. Never mind him. You should walk to work. Why don't you get in a sailboat and sail across the ocean to your next meeting in Europe, Justin? Or, I don't know, use Skype or Zoom, you weirdo. Chrystia Freeland is also making a comeback in the news. The single best question ever asked by a Canadian journalist. Do you agree that Canada has the social capacity to welcome 1.2 million new people per year? Let's see how she answers.
Canadian press show your government was warned that housing construction had not kept up with population growth, largely because of Canada's immigration targets. Why did your government not heed that warning and lower immigration levels?
Thank you for the question, Simon. And let me say this. As a country, Canada is probably the country in the world which is the most welcoming of new Canadians, which is the most welcoming of immigrants.
Yeah, we have very much noticed that that is your mission statement.
And as finance minister, I have to say that is a huge economic strength. It is a real driver of our country's economic growth. And at a time when all of the industrialized countries in the world are facing huge demographic challenges, we are extremely fortunate as a country that we have the social capacity to welcome immigrants. You are quite right that if we want to be a country that welcomes new Canadians, and I strongly believe that's the right thing for all of us, we have to build more homes faster. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. Our government is totally committed to getting more homes built for Canadians. You have seen that unrelenting focus for weeks and weeks and weeks, for months and months and months.
Yeah. I don't even know. I'm going to quote Trump here. I don't even know if she knows what the hell she just said. I don't think it makes any sense at all. Canada is not economically sound by welcoming 1.2 million immigrants per year. We're in a deficit. We're giving out a bunch of social assistance money to these new immigrants. That doesn't make any sense. The government is handing out free money instead of jobs being created, houses being built. We're subsidizing the immigrants and welcoming them here in open arms to brag about the fact that our population is going up. Does not make any sense. It's like being a hoarder. It's like bragging about having things in your house, and then you open the doors to the house and there's newspaper stacks as high as the ceiling, and you can't even enjoy the house. You can't go anywhere. There's nothing to do, right? Yeah, I don't really like it. And let me know what you guys think down below about our immigration, if you agree that 1.2 is sustainable. Next up, we have Russell Brand, who is at or sharing a clip at least, of a Bitcoin 2024 convention that just happened, where even Donald Trump spoke at. But this isn't Donald Trump. This is Robert Kennedy Jr., who has to talk about not Bitcoin, but about how the Canadian government responded to the trucker protest, which is something that you don't hear too much about anymore because it has been 2.5 years. But nonetheless, it still gets brought up, which is absolutely incredible. Let's take a look.
The truckers were doing something that all of us in our country take for granted. They were assembling to petition their government about something that they thought was important, which was that the impacts, the financial impacts of the mandates on their businesses. If you look at the videos of that event, it was like Woodstock. People were giving out water bottles, they were picking up trash, they were playing music, they were being kind to each other. But it was portrayed by the Canadian government as a right-wing, extremist, violent terror organization. And the government began using facial recognition systems and other forms of surveillance to learn the identity of the truckers, looking at their license plates, et cetera. And then it froze their bank accounts. And it froze their $12 million PayPal account. And when Canada did that, it occurred that the premier template of democracy in the world besides the United States, it occurred to me immediately that transactional freedom was as important as freedom of expression in the First Amendment. Because if the government has the capacity, none of these truckers were charged with a crime, much less convicted. And yet the government was able to shut down their bank accounts. They couldn't pay their mortgages. They couldn't buy diesel for their trucks. They couldn't buy food for their children. One trucker told me that he was going to jail because he couldn't make mandatory alimony payments. And if a government is able to starve you, to evict you from your home, if you speak out against it, if you criticize government policies, then we are on the road to totalitarianism and slavery. And I began at that time looking seriously for alternatives, and it was that incident that led me immediately to grasp the potential of this technology to provide transactional freedom and self-sovereignty.
So this is pretty cool because you've seen other hotshot people talk about this issue, right? You've seen Joe Rogan talk about it and how it was absolutely an abuse of power by the Canadian government to do that to Canadians, right? During the trucker convoy. You've seen Jordan Peterson talk about it. Hell, you've even seen Russell Brand, who shared that clip, talk about it. And if I'm not mistaken, you've heard Trump mention it because I just feel like I've heard that, but I can't think of an exact quote that he has said. A lot of people, even Elon Musk, has talked about it, and there was reason to believe that Elon Musk bought the domain liar.com, which directed to Justin Trudeau's Wikipedia. Everybody has talked about it. Now you're even seeing another presidential candidate, Robert Kennedy Jr., speak up about this. But no, we're the crazy ones, right? All of these other intelligent, high-profile people, we're all crazy, and it's Justin Trudeau who is right, and that's how we should believe it. No, false. It was an immense abuse of power, and it's scary to think that that has ever happened and that could happen again in the future. Even though the courts, it took them 2 years to deem that the Emergencies Act was illegally invoked, it's still absolutely insane that there isn't more of a mechanism in place that would prevent this from just somebody saying, okay, let's go, Emergencies Act. You would think that it would have to go through certain levels, and it would take a little bit of time, and there'd be a little bit of a tug of war to deem if it was actually necessary to do that here on domestic soil. But no, that wasn't the case, and they did what they did, and Canada's reputation will carry that for an extremely long time. I just want to know what you guys think about that. Are you still angry about that? Do you still hold resentment towards the Canadian government for what they did during the trucker convoy, during freezing people's bank accounts and all that? That was just horrible. Next up, we do have some Olympic footage. Now, things are getting bad at the Olympics. Things are getting really bad. So we have this clip here of, it looks like there's a soccer team, right? France versus Israel potentially. And then you have people in the stands that have Palestinian flags, and they are actually chanting during the Israeli national anthem. They are chanting Hail Hitler. Now, I'm not going to play the clip. Something about the clips and the Olympic Committee, it's not mixing and matching very well. And they've actually come out and made a statement about this. So the IOC is the governing body, the International Olympic Committee. They have made an actual statement about the clarification given about the Paris 2024 Organization Committee regarding the opening ceremony. The IOC has taken note of and welcomes a clarification given by the Paris 2024 Organizing Committee regarding the opening ceremony. In the daily press briefing, the organizing committee said that there was never any intention to show disrespect towards religious groups or belief. They reiterated that their intention with the opening ceremony was to celebrate community and tolerance. The organizing committee also said that if anyone was offended by certain scenes, this was completely unintentional and we are sorry. And this just doesn't seem to be sitting with people. It doesn't seem to be sitting with people because it's mixing and matching who is actually apologizing. A lot of people are doubling down and saying there was nothing wrong with these ceremonies, such as Dr. Jill says the Olympic opening ceremony, which depicted drag queens and Last Supper, was spectacular.
It was spectacular. The rain did not dampen our spirits. And Casey, honestly, every step of the way, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, how are we going to top this? How are we going to top this? So Paris has the, Eiffel Tower, but we have Hollywood and the magic of Hollywood that makes all dreams come true. So I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, and she's not the only one that has doubled down. In fact, you have the individual who recreated the role of Jesus. This person right here. Fat Dykes Exist is a previous post to social media that she or they have made. Barbara Butch herself claimed that she was representing the Olympic Jesus in the opening ceremony. Only when things went wrong did she change her description to one of the god of Olympus. She started lying that her inspiration was a Bijlert painting. And you can see by the social media posts, people have linked this all together to they are only retracting because of the backlash, but it was obviously purposeful. There's a lot of preparation that goes into these things. There's a lot of rough drafts that they go through beforehand. There's someone that has to approve it. There's a massive budget for this. And people just aren't believing the collateral damage, right? They're not believing the damage control, saying that, hey, yeah, we didn't mean it. We didn't mean to offend 2.4 billion Christians around the world by recreating literally the Last Supper with transgenders. It's just not sitting right. And it's not me who thinks that. It's obviously a lot of people. Well, it's not just me, sorry, who thinks that. It's a lot of people, including this Catholic bishop. Robert Barron goes off on the Olympics and their apology.
This is Bishop Barron. A few days ago I did a video complaining about this outrageous opening ceremony at the Olympics, and the video went viral. And frankly, I had no intention of returning to the issue until this morning. I saw the so-called apology from the organizing committee, and I thought it's anything but an apology. In fact, it's kind of a masterpiece of woke duplicity. And so I just wanted to say a few things, because if they felt this is meant to mollify Christians, I would think again. Here's some of the things that were said. Clearly, there was never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. Give me a break. So we have a group of drag queens cavorting in a kind of sexually provocative way, clearly an imitation of Da Vinci's Last Supper, which presents to the world the Last Supper of Jesus. And no disrespect was meant. You think anyone takes that seriously? I love this. We tried to celebrate community tolerance. Yeah, tolerance. Except for those pesky 2.6 billion Christians on the planet. Everyone's welcome, everyone's tolerated, all this lovely diversity, until you get to anyone that disagrees with your ideology, like these 2.6 billion people. So don't give me this business about tolerance and diversity. And then we believe this ambition, celebrating tolerance, was achieved. Well, I wonder what planet they're living on. If they think that harmony and peace and all this was achieved by this clear affront to Christians. And then at the very end, a standard bit of condescension. If people have taken any offense, we're truly sorry. In other words, if you're so simple-minded and stupid to have been offended by this wonderful expression of French culture, well, we're sorry about that. Christians were offended because it was offensive, and it was intended to be offensive. So please don't patronize us with this condescending remark about, well, if you had any, bad feelings, we're awfully sorry about that. Again, if people think this is somehow going to mollify people all over the Christian world who are outraged by what happened, I would recommend thinking again. And a real apology would be something like, this was a mistake, it should never have been done, and we're sorry for it. I don't think Christians should be mollified. I think we should keep raising our voices.
And like I said at the start of this video, the actions in which this Olympic ceremony took place, it's really opened my eyes to just be aware of what the hell is going on in this world. They are attacking. It's somehow okay to attack white people. It's somehow okay to attack straight people. Straight white people, we're horrible. It's somehow okay to attack Christians. Now you add in straight white Christians, and oh my God, that's the worst kind, apparently, according to this deep state narrative or whatever you want to call it. And I've made a video about this on my extra channel, which you can find linked down below in the description. But I want to reiterate it now that this is pushing me back towards Christianity. The fact that there's this blatantly obvious attack on Christians, on that religious group, which is how I was raised. I was raised a Catholic. I went to church, right? I did everything that you do in that upbringing, and that's somewhere in my teens I just lost interest and stopped going. And my faith in God, in religion, have just kind of got put on the back burner. And I haven't made it a priority. Now that I have kids, 2 kids, blessed to have 2 healthy children, I really want to have my kids raised with the right beliefs, the beliefs that I was raised with. And then you see what's happening at the Olympic stage, which I grew up looking at the Olympics up on a pedestal. I mean, the Olympic torch ran in front of my high school. I've always sat around the TV with family and friends and watched the Olympics and cheered on Canada, cheered on all the different sports, because the Olympics has always been like the cream of the crop. The best in the world compete on this massive event, and it's supposed to be something celebrated. And now it's turned into this political and religious attack. It doesn't make any sense. Just to think about the Olympics, the French using their turn to shit on Christians. That is just still a cogwheel in my brain going, how does that make any sense? But it happened. And so it's really pushing me back towards my religious faith. And anyways, a little bit about me, and let's get back to the news here. So Watch Guru on X said, just in, U.S. government moves $2 billion worth of Bitcoin to a new address. 2 days ago, Donald Trump said he would create a strategic national Bitcoin stockpile, and the government would keep 100% of the Bitcoin it owned if elected. This is pretty wild. Seems like both governments are kind of pro Bitcoin, which is pretty interesting. And then you also have, speaking of Donald Trump, breaking, Facebook is now censoring the iconic image of Trump's defiant fist. It's now flagged as misinformation, which is absolutely insane, considering Mark Zuckerberg, after Donald Trump did go through that attempted assassination, Mark Zuckerberg did go on an interview and say that that's the most badass thing that's ever happened in his time of being alive that he's ever witnessed. So I don't know why his companies would flag things as misinformation, but nonetheless, here we are. And then you have Elon Musk, who's sharing this bit of information here. Probably just a coincidence that Alphabet, Google employees were top donors to Joe Biden. Yeah, you can see right there, 1.7. And then you have University of California, 1.4, U.S. government. So that's a lot of donations that go towards Joe Biden. They are leading the donations. At least this was in the 2020 election cycle. And then you have this photo here of the recent Venezuela polls and the American polls. Something seems suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. And then Elon Musk says major election fraud by Maduro in Venezuela, where somehow when they've totaled who has won and what percentage, they have reached 109.2%, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Somehow, election totaling has reached almost 110% of voters. Something surely isn't up there. I'm sure that's not worth investigating. He says sarcastically, I think we're going to get to the bottom of that within the coming days, not even weeks. People on X are very adamant about finding the truth, which is why we have pretty much segued out of using a lot of mainstream media footage, and we're taking a look at independent things such as what we just saw here today, all on X. That's where we're going to end the video. A bit of a long one today. Thank you for sticking out to the very end. To those who have, on your way out, I would like to encourage you guys to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.